The Black Pullet. Science of Magical Talismans. The Black Pullet. Science of Magical Talismans. Before commencing this subject, and to apprise my readers of this profound science, which until the present day has been the object of the most constant research and profound meditations, I must disclose how these marvelous secrets were communicated to me, and the manner in which divine providence permitted me to escape the gravest perils and, as it were, guided me by its divine hand, demonstrating that by the divine will it suffices to exalt the lowliest of beings or to reduce to nothingness those invested with all earthly power. We all, therefore, originate from God. God is all, and without him nothing can exist. Who is better positioned than I to penetrate eternal and sacred truth? I served as an officer in the army of the genius during the Egyptian expedition. I participated in the triumphs and setbacks of this army, which, whether victorious or compelled to yield to force by eventualities and circumstances, always covered itself in glory. As there is no utility in recounting here the minutiae of this memorable campaign, I shall relate but a single incident by which I was affected, and which is necessary for the development I must provide to those whom I mentioned in my preface. I had been dispatched by the general, under whose command I served, to draft plans of the pyramids. He had assigned me an escort of mounted light infantry. I arrived with them at my destination without mishap, and without observing anything that might presage the fate awaiting us. We had dismounted near the pyramids, our horses had been tethered, and, seated upon the sands, we appeased the hunger that tormented us. French gaiety seasoned the provisions that composed our frugal repast. The meal was nearing its conclusion, and I was engaged in my work, when suddenly a horde of desert Arabs descended upon us. We lacked the time to assume a defensive posture. Sword blows rained down, bullets whistled past, and I sustained several wounds. My unfortunate companions lay on the ground, dead or dying. Our cruel enemies, having stripped us of weapons and clothing, vanished with our horses with the speed of lightning. I remained for some time in a state of prostration, facing the sun. Eventually recovering some strength, I rose with difficulty. I had suffered 2 saber cuts to the head and 1 to the left arm. I surveyed my surroundings. I saw nothing but corpses, a burning sky, an arid sand within an immense desert and terrifying solitude. With only the expectation of a certain and cruel death, I resigned myself to bidding farewell to my country, my parents, and my friends. Invoking heaven, I crawled toward the pyramid, and the blood flowing abundantly from my wounds reddened the sand that was soon to become my tomb. Upon reaching the foot of these worldly marvels, I sat and leaned against this enormous mass that had witnessed the passage of many centuries and would witness many more. I reflected that my existence, which was soon to cease, had come to naught, just as the day was nearing its end, the sun being on the verge of plunging into the ocean. Brilliant star, receive my farewells, I said with emotion. My eyes shall never behold you again. Your beneficent light shall never again shine upon me. Farewell. As I uttered this adieu, which I believed to be eternal, the sun vanished. Night fell and shrouded the world in its dark curtain. I was absorbed in the most mournful reflections when a slight sound became audible a few paces away. A large stone slab detached itself from the pyramid and fell onto the sand. I turned in that direction and, by the light of a small lantern he carried, I perceived a venerable old man emerging from the pyramid. A white beard covered his chest, a turban his head, and the remainder of his attire indicated he was a Muslim. He cast his gaze about, then, advancing a few steps, halted before the corpse of one of my unhappy companions in misfortune. "Oh heavens!" he cried in Turkish. "A man is wounded. A Frenchman is dead." He raised his eyes to the sky, saying, "Oh God." He then discovered the others, whom he carefully examined to ascertain if any still breathed. To assure himself, I observed him place his hand over the region of the heart. The old man recognized that they had all ceased to live. Uttering a painful groan, with tears furrowing his visage, he turned back to re-enter the pyramid. I felt a desire to preserve my days. I had already made the sacrifice of my life, yet hope entered my heart. Summoning all my strength, I called to him. He heard me, and directing his lantern toward me, he saw me. Advancing, he offered me his hand, which I seized and pressed to my lips. He perceived that I was wounded and that blood was flowing from the cuts on my head. Placing his lantern on the ground, he removed his sash and bound my brow. He then assisted me in rising. I had lost much blood and suffered from extreme weakness. I possessed barely enough strength to support myself. Placing his lantern in my hand, then taking me in his arms, he carried me near the opening in the pyramid from which he had emerged and set me gently upon the sand. Giving my hand an affectionate clasp, he indicated that he was re-entering the pyramid and would return promptly. I rendered thanks to heaven for the unexpected succor sent to me. The old man reappeared carrying a flagon. He removed the stopper and poured a few drops of the liqueur into a drinking vessel, which he offered me. A delicious perfume diffused around me. Scarcely had this divine liqueur penetrated my stomach than I felt regenerated, and I possessed sufficient strength to enter the pyramid with my benefactor and generous guide. We then paused for a few moments. He replaced the fallen stone, adjusting it with an iron bar, and we descended an easy slope into the pyramid's interior. After traversing this path for some time, navigating several sinuous turns, we arrived at a door which he secretly opened and carefully closed. Then, having crossed an immense hall, we entered another chamber. A lamp hung from the ceiling. There was a table covered with books, several oriental divans, and a bed for rest. The benevolent old man conducted me to a seat. Placing his lantern on the table, he opened a cabinet from which he retrieved several vases. He approached me and invited me to remove my garments with an attention and complaisance difficult to describe. Having examined my wounds, he applied, with solemn formality, several balms drawn from the aforementioned vases. Scarcely had they been applied to my arms and head than the pain was assuaged. He invited me to lie upon his bed, and very soon a salutary and soothing sleep weighed down my eyelids. When I awoke, I looked about and beheld the good old man seated near me. He had not wished to partake of rest while I slept, fearing I might require assistance. I tendered him my most grateful thanks through the most expressive signs. In like manner, he signified that I must remain quiet. He administered a fresh portion of the cordial which had already demonstrated its beneficial effects. Subsequently, he regarded me with extreme attention, and realizing he had nothing to fear for my life, he affectionately patted my hand. He then lay down upon some cushions on the opposite side of the chamber, and soon I heard him sleeping profoundly and peacefully. "Oh, benevolent one," I said to myself, Thou art virtue incarnate and a pure emanation of the divinity. Thou unitest and bringest men together, and thou makest them forget the pains to which they are prey. Through thee, they are restored to happiness, and indeed, thou art this happiness, the object of all their wishes and desires. My host stirred and arose. He approached me, smiling to perceive a state of calm and tranquility that allayed any fears regarding my condition. He intimated that he intended to depart briefly, to exit the pyramid and observe the state of affairs in the external world. He placed within my reach all that he deemed requisite for my sustenance, and thereupon left me in solitude. Until that moment, I had not reflected at all upon the events that had befallen me during this crisis. I found myself secure within this subterranean abode and harbored no unease regarding my host. Nevertheless, I knew this situation must conclude with my departure, once cured, to rejoin the army. I was engrossed in these reflections when I beheld the old man re-enter. He conveyed that several corps of Arabs and Mamelukes were surveying the plain, yet he had observed them undetected, for his retreat remained impenetrable to all eyes. He signified that he held me under his protection and regarded me as his own son. Thus I could resign myself to the utmost security. I expressed my profound gratitude, and he appeared satisfied. Perceiving my frustration at being able to express myself solely through signs, he brought me a volume, indicating that with its aid we might soon communicate without impediment. The career I had pursued since childhood had accustomed me to meditation. I loved intellectual application, and I was soon in a state to comprehend my generous elder. Moreover, he exhibited such complaisance in the lessons he bestowed upon me that even one with less diligence would have made progress. I shall pass over in silence all that related to the rudiments of my new education. My complete cure and convalescence required more time than I had anticipated. My host ventured out periodically to observe the course of affairs, as he was otherwise isolated from worldly events. In short, one day his absence was more prolonged than usual. Upon his return, he informed me that the French army had evacuated Egypt and that I could not hope to depart at that juncture without accounting for the time I had spent with him. He urged that I remain with him, a course he would compel me to take through kindness and affection, ensuring that in my peculiar captivity my fate would not be as cruel as I might apprehend, for he promised to instruct me in matters that would astonish me, such that I should desire no other form of good fortune. By then I had begun to understand the Turkish language. He bade me rise. I obeyed. He took me by the hand and conducted me to the far end of the chamber. He opened a door opposite the entrance, and taking a lamp from the table, we proceeded into a vault where several coffers were arranged in regular rows. Upon his opening them, they were revealed to be filled with gold and gems of every description. You see, my son, that with these resources one need never fear poverty. All is yours. I am approaching the end of my mortal span, and I shall be content to leave them in your possession. These treasures are not the fruit of avarice or sordid self-interest. I possess them through the knowledge of the occult sciences with which I am conversant, and through the boon granted to me by the great being to penetrate the secrets of nature. I can still command the powers that populate the earth and space, beings invisible to ordinary men. I hold you in great affection, my dear son. I recognize in you candor, sincerity, a love of truth, and an aptitude for these sciences. Above all, I wish you to know that these acquisitions have cost me more than 80 years of research, meditation, and experience. The science of the magicians and the language of the hieroglyphics have been lost through the fall of man. I alone am their guardian. I will impart these precious confidences to you, and we shall read together those characters traced upon the pyramids, enigmas that have been the despair of scholars, before which they have stood baffled for many centuries. The prophetic manner of his speech impressed me deeply, and I evinced a lively desire to comprehend that with which he wished to acquaint me. I expressed this to him in the Turkish tongue, which I was beginning to understand and speak with sufficient fluency to be intelligible. "Your wishes shall be fulfilled," answered my adopted father. Then, lifting one hand toward the arch of heaven, he spoke in a solemn tone. "Love, my son, love the most good and magnificent God of the philosophers, and never succumb to pride if he brings you into contact with the children of wisdom, admitting you to their company and making you a participant in the wonders of his power." Having concluded this invocation, he looked at me and said, "Such are the principles you must fathom. Strive to render yourself worthy to receive the light. The hour of your regeneration has arrived. You shall become as a new being. Pray fervently to him who alone possesses the power to create new hearts, that he may grant you the capacity for the great things I have to teach, and inspire me to withhold from you none of the mysteries of nature. Pray. Hope. I extol the eternal wisdom which has been placed within my soul, and I desire to disclose to you its ineffable truths. And you shall be fortunate, my son, if nature has implanted in your soul the resolution that these high mysteries demand of you. You will learn to command all nature. God alone shall be your master, and the enlightened will alone your equal. The supreme intelligences will glory in obeying your desires. The demons will not dare to approach where you stand. Your voice shall make them tremble in the pits of the abyss, and all the invisible beings inhabiting the four elements will esteem themselves happy to minister to your pleasures. I adore thee, O great God, for having crowned man with such glory, and for having established him as sovereign monarch over all the works of thy hands. Do you feel, my son, do you feel this heroic ambition which is the sure stamp of the children of wisdom? Do you dare to desire to serve only the one God, and to hold dominion over all that is not God? Have you understood what it signifies to prove oneself a man, and to be unwilling to be a slave, seeing that you were born to be a sovereign? And if you possess these noble thoughts, as the signs I have discerned in your physiognomy do not permit me to doubt, have you maturely considered whether you possess the courage and strength to renounce all things that might prove an obstacle to attaining the greatness for which you were born? At this juncture, he paused and regarded me fixedly, as if awaiting a reply or seeking to read my heart. I asked him, "What is it that I must renounce?" "All that is evil, that you may occupy yourself solely with the good. The propensity to vice rather than to virtue with which nearly all of us are born. Those passions which render us slaves to our senses, preventing us from applying ourselves to study, from tasting its sweetness, and from gathering its fruits. You see, my dear son, that the sacrifice I demand of you is not painful, nor is it beyond your strength. On the contrary, it will enable you to approach perfection as nearly as it is possible for man to attain. Do you accept what I propose?" "O my father," I answered, "nothing conforms more to my desires than the choice of rectitude and virtue." "It suffices," answered the old man. Before unfolding to you completely the doctrine which will initiate you into the most profound and sacred mysteries, you must understand that the elements are inhabited by creatures of high perfection. The immense space between heaven and earth possesses inhabitants far more noble than the birds and the gnats. The vast seas harbor many hosts other than whales and dolphins. It is likewise in the depths of the earth, which contain things other than water and minerals, and the element of fire, more noble than the other three, was not created to remain useless and void. The atmosphere teems with an uncountable multitude of beings possessing human form, somewhat proud in appearance yet docile in reality, great lovers of the sciences, subtle, and obliging to the great magi while hostile to the foolish and the ignorant. These are the sylphs. The seas and rivers constitute the habitation of the Undines, while the earth is filled almost to its center with gnomes, the guardians of treasures and precious stones. These are the ingenious friends of man and are easy to command. They supply the children of the sages with all the wealth of which they have need, asking no other remuneration for their services than the glory of being commanded. As for the salamanders, the inhabitants of the fiery regions, they serve the philosophers, but they do not seek the attention of their company. I might also speak of the familiar spirits. Socrates, as well as Pythagoras and sundry other wise men, possessed theirs. I, too, have one who attends me whenever I have need of him. This will undoubtedly appear strange to you. Yet, even if your own eyes do not convince you of the truth, you may lend credence to it if you harbor any confidence in Socrates, Plato, Pythagoras, Zoroaster, Proclus, Porphyry, Iamblichus, Ptolemy, Trismegistus, and other sages, to whose enlightenment one must add those who grant us natural knowledge. It remains for me to discourse upon the talismans, those magic circles that shall grant you the power to command all the elements, to evade every danger and all the snares of your enemies, and to assure you the success of all your enterprises and the fulfillment of your wishes. He rose, unlocked a chest situated at the foot of his bed, and withdrew a cedarwood box overlaid with gold veneer and enriched with diamonds of extraordinary brilliance. The lock, upon which hieroglyphic characters were engraved, was likewise of gold. He opened this casket, and I beheld a vast quantity of talismans and rings, enriched with diamonds and engraved with magical and cabalistic symbols. It was impossible to gaze upon them without being dazzled. You observe, my son, he said, that each possesses its own virtue, its peculiar efficacy. But to utilize it, you must comprehend the language of the Magi in order to pronounce the mysterious words engraved thereon. I shall teach them to you before undertaking with you the great operation with the spirits and the animals who are submissive to my authority and who obey me blindly. Once initiated into all these mysteries, you shall perceive of how many errors the majority of those who pretend to be servile to nature have been guilty. They love the truth and believe they have discovered it through abstract ideas. Yet they lose their way in the faith of a reason whose limits they do not know. The vulgar or common people perceive nothing in the world they inhabit beyond an arch of glittering light by day and a scattering of stars by night. These are the limits of their universe. Certain philosophers have seen further and have expanded their knowledge, nearly to the present time, to the point of frightening our imagination. Furthermore, what prodigious work is offered at a single stroke to the human spirit? Employ eternity merely to survey it. Take the wings of the dawn, fly to the planet Saturn in the heavens that extend above this planet. You will find, unceasingly, new spheres, new orbs, worlds accumulating one above another. You will discover infinity in matter, in space, in movement, and in the number of nuances and shades that adorn them. As our souls expand with our ideas and assimilate, in a certain manner, the objects they penetrate, how greatly must a man become elated at having fathomed such inconceivable depths. I have risen thanks to wisdom, and you shall reach this point as well. He stood and gathered several manuscripts that lay upon the table. These precious tomes, my dear son, will acquaint you with matters unknown to the rest of humanity, things that would seem never to have existed. These books escaped the burning of the library of Ptolemy. They have sustained some damage, as you can see. Indeed, several pages have been blackened by the fire. Ah well, it is through the knowledge I have been able to draw from these works that I possess the authority to command all beings inhabiting the aerial and terrestrial regions, both known and unknown to man. Oh, my son, prostrate yourself before the divinity. Deplore in his presence the errors of the human spirit, and promise him to be as virtuous as it is possible for a man to be. Guard against studying moral philosophy in the ignorant writings of the multitude, in schemes produced by the heat of the imagination, by the restlessness of the spirit, or by the desire for celebrity that torments their authors. Seek guidance in those works where, having no interest other than truth nor aim other than public utility, they render unto morals and virtue the homage they have deserved in all times and among all peoples. I listened to this good old man with admiration mingled with respect. He had ceased speaking, yet I thought I heard him still. A sweet majesty reigned in all his features, and persuasion seemed to flow from his lips like a limpid stream running down a slope to fertilize the prairies. He noticed my admiration, which was akin to ecstasy. "My dear son," he said, "I pardon your astonishment. You have, until now, lived in the society of men who are corrupt, who have learned to doubt everything and to forget the respect one owes to him who brought forth all from nothing. Wisdom is for them a meaningless difficulty, but as you acquire it, it will become for you a practical virtue. You will regard it as something very simple, as natural to you as the air you breathe and as necessary to your existence. Your wounds are healing. Tomorrow I shall commence your education in wisdom, and I will give you the first lesson. I am now going to my aviary to feed my prisoners." "What?" I said to him. "Your prisoners. With your philosophy and the love of humanity that characterizes you, do you deprive living creatures of their liberty?" He smiled at my observation. "My dear son, that which I do is necessary to facilitate my mysterious operations, but the destiny of those submissive to my laws is perhaps sweeter than if they enjoyed complete liberty. Besides, they have never known the prize and so cannot desire it. Tomorrow you shall have the answer to all these enigmas." He then left me to enter the cave where he had led me when he showed me the chests filled with gold and precious stones. Soon he returned. I rose. He told me to approach the awning so that we might eat something before retiring to sleep. He gathered the papers that were on the table. He took a seat and bade me sit by his side. I obeyed, but as I saw no food, he laughingly added that this repast was not very substantial, but that in a moment I would see that he possessed cooks and slaves equally clever and intelligent. He immediately pronounced these words, "Agi Geminos, Tur, Nicophanta," and blew 3 times upon a ring he wore on his finger. Instantly, the place was illuminated by 7 chandeliers of rock crystal which appeared from the void. 9 slaves entered. bearing various viands on golden plates and wine in vessels of the greatest opulence. Incense burned in tripods, and celestial music could be heard. Everything was placed on the table in the most beautiful order, and the slaves stood at attention around us to serve. "You see, my son," the good old man repeated to me, "I have but to command to be obeyed. Eat, serve yourself, and choose what will gratify you." Everything I tasted was delicious. Then I took my goblet, and the wine, like nectar which had been poured into it, its bouquet a forerunner to its delicate taste, appealed agreeably to my sense of smell. When it had astonished my palate and I had relished it, it seemed as though a divine fire flowed through my veins and as if I had acquired a new existence. I gazed upon the slaves who attended us. All were in the flower of their youth, possessing the greatest beauty, and clad in rose silk tunics cinched with white sashes. Flowing golden curls cascaded upon their shoulders. With eyes lowered in deference, they awaited the commands of their master. The elder permitted me to conclude my observation, after which he inquired, "My son, have you appeased your hunger?" "Yes, my father," I replied. He raised his hand and uttered, "Ojuam, Bedak, Akos," whereupon the slaves hastened to remove all that lay upon the table. As they departed, the chandeliers vanished, and 2 beds materialized on opposite sides of the chamber, which was now illuminated solely by a lamp casting a soft glow reminiscent of twilight. "There, my dear son, is the manner in which you shall be served each day. Your occupations will vary infinitely, thereby preserving you from tedium. Surrender yourself to slumber. I shall do likewise, and tomorrow, when the day breaks, I will fulfill the promise I have made to you." "But my father," I asked, "since daylight never penetrates your abode, how can you discern when the dawn appears?" "That depends upon my will, my son. It is yet another surprise I shall arrange for you. Until tomorrow, sleep in peace." He extended his hand, which I pressed against my heart. He approached his couch, lay down, and soon sleep weighed heavy upon his eyelids. I followed his example shortly thereafter and fell asleep. When I opened my eyes, the lamp had vanished. Daylight illuminated the chamber, and the rays of the sun penetrated within. The old man was pacing with a book in his hand. The movement I made interrupted his reading, and he regarded me with a smile. I rose hurriedly and cast myself into the arms he opened to me. "My father, I salute you. You have rested well, my dear son," he said, "as I judge by the calm that reigns upon your countenance. Render homage to God, who has permitted you to enjoy once again this beautiful day that illuminates you. And ere I initiate you into the mysteries of wisdom, I shall converse with you regarding a point of my doctrine necessary for your progress." He handed me a book and, opening it, stated, "Here is the first page and the prayer you must address to the Great Being." I then read that which follows. "Oration of the sages, immortal, eternal, ineffable, and sacred Father of all things, borne upon the unceasingly rolling chariot of the ever-rotating worlds, ruler of the ethereal plane where your throne of power is exalted, and from whose heights your formidable eyes behold all, and your beautiful and holy ears hear all. Hearken unto your children, whom you have loved from their birth through all ages. Since your enduring, great, and eternal majesty shines resplendently over the world and the starry heavens, you are raised above them. O sparkling fire! There you illuminate and maintain yourself in your proper splendor. From your being flow never-failing streams of light that nourish your infinite spirit. This infinite spirit generates all things and produces this inexhaustible treasure of matter, which cannot fail to procreate that which always surrounds it, due to the countless forms with which it is filled, and with which you have filled it since the beginning of time. From this spirit, the most holy kings who stand about your throne and compose your court also derive their origin. O Universal Father! O Unique One! O Father of blissful mortals and immortals! You have specially created powers that are marvelously akin to your eternal thought and your adorable essence. You have established them as superior to the angels who announce your will to the world. Finally, you have created us sovereigns over the elements. Our unceasing endeavor is to praise you and to adore your desires. We burn with the longing to be possessed by you. O Father! O Mother! The tenderest of mothers! O admirable exemplar of maternal tenderness! O Son! The flower of all sons! O mold of all our forms! Well-beloved spirit, soul, harmony, and number of all things, we adore you. When I had concluded, he addressed me, My dear son, I have spoken to you of the spirits that populate the firmament, the sea, the earth, and the fire, that is to say, the elements. I have spoken to you of these spirits, and I shall now proceed into greater detail to expand the limits of your intelligence, and to grant you the means of penetrating and comprehending the sacred mysteries that shall be divulged to you. When the universe was replete with life, this unique Son, this God-begotten One, received a spherical body, the most perfect of all forms. He was subject to circular motion, the simplest of all movements and the most suitable to his shape. The Supreme Being surveyed his work with complaisance, and having compared it with the model he followed in his operations, he recognized with pleasure that the principal traits of the original were repeated in the copy. He did not grant him eternity, for these two worlds could not possess identical perfections. He created time, the mobile image of a mobile eternity, which measures the duration of the sensible world as eternity measures that of the intellectual world. And to that end, he left traces of his presence and his movements. The Supreme Being kindled the sun and cast it, along with the other planets, into the vast solitude of the ether. It is from there that this heavenly body floods the firmament with its light. The architect of all things then addressed his commandment to the spirits to whom he had entrusted the administration of the celestial bodies. Gods, who owe your birth to me, hearken to my sovereign commands. You do not possess the inherent right to immortality, yet you participate in it through the power of my will, which is more potent than the bonds uniting the parts of which you are composed. It remains, for the perfection of this whole, to fill with inhabitants the seas, the earth, and the air. Were they to owe their existence directly to me and escape the empire of death, they would become equal to the gods themselves. I therefore lay upon you the charge of producing them. Agents of my power, unite to these perishable bodies the favor of immortality that you have received from my hand. Mold, in particular, those beings who command other animals and who are submissive to you, those who are born by your orders, who increase through your beneficence, and who, after their death, are reunited with you to share in your beatitude. He spoke, and suddenly, pouring into the basin where he had kneaded the soul of the world, the remainder of this soul held in reserve, he fashioned individual souls. Joining to the souls of men a small portion of the divine essence, he attached to them irrevocable destinies. Finally, having appointed to the inferior gods the task of successively reclothing mortal bodies to provide for and govern their needs, the Supreme Being re-entered into eternal rest. The inferior gods were obliged to employ the same means in our development, giving rise to the maladies of the body and the even more perilous afflictions of the soul. All that is good in the universe in general, and in man in particular, derives from the Supreme God. All that is defective stems from the vices inherent in matter. The earth and the heavens are populated, my dear son, with spirits to whom the Supreme Being has confided the administration of the universe. He has distributed them wherever nature appears to be animated, but principally in those regions stretching around and above us, from the earth up to the sphere of the moon. It is there that an immense authority is exercised, dispensing life and death, good and evil, light and darkness. Each nation and each individual finds in these invisible representatives an ardent friend to protect him, and an enemy no less ardent to pursue him. They are clad in aerial forms. Their essence occupies an intermediate state between divine nature and the material world. While they surpass us in intellect, some remain subject to human passions, particularly during the transmutations that elevate them to a superior rank. Due to their innumerable multitude, spirits are categorized into 4 distinct classes. The first consists of perfect beings, whom the common masses adore and who reside within the stars. The second comprises the spirits properly so called, concerning whom I have previously conversed with you. The third includes beings of lesser perfection who, nevertheless, render great service to humanity. And the fourth consists of our own souls, once separated from the corporeal forms they inhabited. From the first 3 classes, we may discern the honors that will one day become part of our own nature, provided we cultivate wisdom and virtue exclusively. To render you more perceptible to the truths I have expounded regarding spirits, I shall recount the experiences that befell me with those who are submissive to my will. Know, too, that they communicate with souls only after a prolonged period of preparation through meditation and prayer. The dominion I have secured over my own spirit is the direct result of my constancy in the practice of the virtues. Initially, I beheld him but rarely. However, one day, yielding to my repeated entreaties, he transported me to the realm of the spirits. Listen, my son, to the account of my voyage. The moment of departure having arrived, I felt my soul detach itself from the bonds that tethered it to the body, and I found myself amidst a new world of animated substances, good or malignant, blithe or melancholic, prudent or reckless. We followed them for a time, and I believed I recognized those who directed the interests of nations and individuals, the researches of sages, and the opinions of the multitude. Soon, a woman of gigantic stature extended her sable veils over the vault of the heavens. Having descended slowly to earth, she issued orders to the cortege that accompanied her. We glided into various dwellings. Sleep and his ministers scattered poppies by the handful, while silence and peace spread gently around virtuous men. Remorse and frightful specters violently shook the beds of the wicked. Dawn and the hours opened the barriers of the day. My guide said to me, "It is time to ascend into the air. Behold the tutelary spirits of Egypt soaring over the various towns and regions irrigated by the Nile. They dispel, as far as possible, the evils with which the lands are menaced. Nevertheless, their countryside shall be devastated, for spirits enveloped in dark clouds are advancing and thundering against us." He then announced to me the arrival of the army of which you formed a part, for he possessed foreknowledge of its coming. Observe now these assiduous agents, who, with a flight as rapid and restless as the swallow, skim over the earth, casting piercing glances on all sides with greed and avidity. These are the inspectors of human affairs. Some spread their sweet influence over the mortals whom they protect, while others launch the relentless nemesis against grave transgressions. Behold these mediators, these interpreters who ascend and descend without cease. They carry your prayers and offerings to the gods, and bring back to us happy or distressing dreams, as well as the secrets of the future which are subsequently revealed to you through the mouths of oracles. "Oh, my protector!" I cried suddenly. "Here are beings whose stature and sinister appearance inspire terror. They approach us. 'Flee,' he said to me. 'They are wretched, and the good fortune of others irritates them. They spare only those who pass their lives in suffering and tears.' Escaping their fury, we encountered sights no less afflicting. Discord, that detestable and eternal source of the dissensions which torment men, marched proudly above their heads, whispering outrage and vengeance into their hearts. With timid steps and lowered eyes, prayers trailed in their wake, endeavoring to restore everywhere the calm that had previously manifested. Glory was pursued by envy, who tore at her own sides. Truth by imposture, who changed her face from moment to moment, and each virtue by several vices bearing snares or daggers. Fortune appeared suddenly. My guide said to me, "You may speak with her." I felicitated her on the gifts which she distributed to mortals. She told me in a serious tone that she did not give, but loaned at high interest. While uttering these words, she dipped the flowers and fruits she grasped in one hand into a poisoned cup held in the other. Then, two powerful spirits passed near us, leaving long trails of light in their wake. The first was war and the second, wisdom. My guide informed me that two armies were approaching one another and were on the verge of engaging in battle. Wisdom would place herself beside the general whose cause was just, and he would be the victor, for merit must triumph. "Let us depart these unhappy spheres," said my spirit. We transcended the limits of the sphere of darkness and death with the speed of lightning and thought. We then soared beyond the sphere of the moon and reached the regions illumined by eternal day. "Let us pause for an instant," said my guide. "Cast your eyes upon the magnificent spectacle that surrounds you. Listen to the divine harmony produced by the regular movement of the celestial bodies. Observe how to each planet and every star is attached a spirit that directs its course. These heavenly bodies are populated by sublime intelligences of a nature superior to our own." With my eyes fixed upon the sun, I contemplated with rapture the spirit who, with vigorous arm, propels this scintillating globe along the course he has decreed. I watched him cast aside with fury the souls who endeavored to plunge into the boiling surges of this sphere to purify themselves, though they were unworthy of such a blessing. Moved by their misfortune, I beseeched my guide to remove me from this sight and lead me into the distance, towards an enclosure where one might escape rays of light that were too brilliant to endure. I hoped to catch a glimpse of the sovereign of the universe, surrounded by the attendants of his throne and by those pure beings whom our philosophers call numbers, eternal ideas, or spirits of mortals. My spirit informed me that the sovereign inhabits regions inaccessible to humans, that we ought to offer him our homage and descend to earth. Hardly had he spoken when we found ourselves in the selfsame place from whence we had departed. He said to me, "I have permitted you to become acquainted with that which no mortal has ever been allowed to glimpse. From this moment, I am no longer constrained to conceal anything from you. And he unveiled to me all the mysteries in which I shall now allow you to participate. To convince you of the truth of all that I have imparted to you, you shall behold my spirit, who will become yours, since I have adopted you as my son. He shall see in you another self. He pronounced these two words, Ku Ampax. In that instant, I saw appear a young man of the most beautiful stature. The rest of his person radiated every charm, and upon the crown of his head shone a flame, the brilliance of which my eyes could not sustain. He spoke, smiling at the old man. Ols, not hos, Pirius. The old man took his hand and answered, Salathas, Xantur, Dynantur. The spirit took his place by his side. The old man noticed that the spirit's light dazzled my eyes. When you have been initiated into the mysteries of wisdom, you will be able to contemplate this fire without danger, and even to endure the rays of the sun. Let us begin the initiation. Let us rise. I executed this order as did the spirit. He placed his hand upon my head and said, Sina, Mises, Tanaim, Orsal, Misanthos. A voice, issuing from the cavern wherein lay the coffers containing all the precious stones, gave this answer. Torzes, Elecanthus, Orbita. Scarcely had the final syllable been articulated than we found ourselves plunged into the most profound darkness. The fire that had radiated from the head of the spirit vanished likewise. Harbor neither dread nor fear, the old man admonished. My father, am I not with you? I asked. Your response gratifies me. It bespeaks confidence. You shall now test the efficacy thereof. He then intoned, Thomatos, Benasser, Elianter. Suddenly all was illuminated, yet by a light that appeared paradoxically somber, and I beheld the entrance of several individuals who stationed themselves about the chamber. Behold the spirits who shall be subservient to you. I will proclaim them to you, he declared. He took me by the hand and guided me around the room. He paused before each spirit and instructed me. Repeat with me, Lita Iser Asnas. I obeyed, and each spirit bowed, replying, Nandher. They numbered 33. Upon reaching the last, he bade me return to the station I had formerly occupied. He then took up a wand, 6 feet in length, bearing the head of a serpent at one extremity and its tail at the other. The wand was adorned with plates of gold, matching the head and tail, upon which were engraved the characters depicted in Figure 1. He formed a circle by uniting the ends with a golden chain passed through 2 links. He laid it upon the ground and positioned himself at its center. What do you desire to behold at this moment, my son? He inquired. The plain where you discovered me, at the point of death from agony and privation, I replied. He raised his hands toward the heavens and pronounced, Sotram, Eubarsinens. Immediately, the spirits approached, and taking me in their arms, they lifted me. I found myself transported to the foot of the pyramid. I observed a multitude of mounted Arabs surveying it. Though I had not perceived him, the old man stood beside me, relishing my astonishment. You see, my son, how all the spirits are submissive to you, how they will obey you and await your commands. Do you wish to return to the place you left, or to soar for a time amidst the aerial regions? Are you aware that you can perceive all that transpires around you, yet remain visible only to the great being who deigns to accord you wisdom, and to those who accompany you? I expressed a desire to survey the immensity. Pronounce Sarum while extending your arms towards the east, and you shall be satisfied. I uttered this word and performed the indicated sign. The spirits lifted me, as they did the old man. We approached the clouds, and the vast horizon unfurled before my enchanted eyes. The old man addressed me once more. You see that I have made no vain promises. You shall enjoy the same success in all your undertakings. But let us return to the pyramid. The spirits await us, and we must continue our workings. He spoke the word rabium, and presently we re-entered the sage's abode. Once we were seated, the spirits vanished, save for the first, who remained with us. All insignia were altered, and a brilliant light illuminated the vault. He then formed the second magic circle. Placing himself therein, the old man said to me, "Approach your spirit. I grant you permission, for I know that you possess a pure heart, and that you have never been guilty of any action that would cause you to blush. Were this not the case, you would be struck dead upon entering this circle. Go, my son." I followed his instructions. He opened the casket containing the rings and withdrew the one shown in figure 3, as well as the talisman, which he placed in my hands. This one shall serve to conjure the celestial and infernal powers. Place the ring upon your finger and the talisman over your heart. Then pronounce the following words: Siraz, Ader, Basaner, and you will perceive the effects. Scarcely had these words escaped my lips than I beheld a multitude of spirits and figures of diverse shapes. The spirit at my side addressed me, "Command and order, and your desires shall be satisfied." The old man added, "My son, the heavens and the hells are at your command. I believe that at this moment you lack nothing. Therefore, if you will be guided by me, defer the proof of the intelligence and activity of these spirits until a later time. To cause them to disappear, remove the ring from your finger and the talisman from its place, and they will return to their sphere." I did as he ordered, and they all vanished like a dream. There remain many things for me to teach you, that you may be at ease with these rings and talismans. This instruction will be the object of very important work which we shall undertake together with the aid of our spirit. Let us pursue the course of our experiments. Remain where you are. He presented me with another ring and talisman, figure number 4. These two precious objects, my son, are destined to make you beloved by the fairest portion of the human race. There is no woman who would not be happy to please you, and who would not employ all possible means to succeed therein. Do you wish for the most beautiful odalisque of the Grand Caliph to be brought before you in an instant? Place the ring on the second finger of your left hand, press the talisman against your lips, and whisper tenderly, "O Nades, Suratis Manir." Suddenly, a spirit with rose-colored wings appeared and knelt before me. "He awaits your orders," the old man said. "Say to him, Sater, Prostas Solaster." I repeated these words, and the spirit vanished. He proceeds to traverse an immense space with the rapidity of thought, and the most beautiful forms will appear before your eyes, serving as models to depict those Huris whom our divine prophet promises to his faithful servants. O my son, how blessed you are! Not every mortal obtains such favors from the Great Spirit, as I perceive by the speed with which your wishes are executed. He had finished speaking when the spirit with the rose-colored wings arrived, bearing in his arms a woman enveloped in a large white veil. She appeared to be asleep, and he placed her gently upon a couch that materialized near me. He raised the veil that concealed her. Never had anything so beautiful been offered to my sight. She was Venus with all the charms of innocence. She sighed and opened the most beautiful eyes. Do you want access to this and all the complete audiobooks on the channel, plus the ebook version? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code in the left corner of the screen to access our library, where you can listen to your favorite esoteric books without ad interruptions, lock your screen, or use other apps while the narration plays, and even download the ebook version to follow along as you listen. Listen on your computer via web browser, or download the app from the Play Store. After subscribing, you will receive an email with your login details, password, and step-by-step instructions on how to access the books through the Hotmart app.